Alright. So, everybody, welcome back to the stream. We will start off the Rocket League stream by reacting to Lemmino's latest video, which I will pop up on the channel right now. Or on the stream.
Shout out to his family.
Shout out to his family, definitely. Hey, yo, can we all just, like, appreciate for a bit, like, Lemmino? It's an hour long, dude. So this is the different chapters he has.
Just a bottle of side, what the fuck?
What?
Fucking, didn't you see it in the ad? It was like, it like slided in like a bottle of semen in English.
Oh. Okay, so, Lassie, do you want me to read you out the chapters we have?
Yes.
We of course have the intro. Then we have chapter 1, Almost Beyond Belief. No, then chapter 2, Not an Atom of Evidence. Chapter 3.
Wait, it's gonna spoil the video.
Okay.
We don't want to spoil the video.
Okay, fine.
Also, you need to screen share on Discord or like window share on Discord. So
Oh yeah. I will.
Unless I will hear the devil. Do you want to just like watch? We should probably commentate slightly so it's like fair use and stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
We need to do commentary.
Yeah, of course. All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Gonna change it to the correct one and
screen. There we go. You need to add audio.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah, you're such a cutie.
Oh, do we have the best quality? We do. All right, 3. Should we have subtitles?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Does he have like special subtitles? Just English. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Just let me know.
Oh, the intro.
Oh god, I got an orgasm. Holy shit.
Events documented in this video may disturb some viewers. No graphics in imagery will be shown.
So, triggered warning for the people that's watching this
exactly.
And on stream. Trigger warning right now.
Exactly.
If you can't handle that shit.
Are you ready to hear the nice Swedish sound?
The city of London was the largest in the world. A sprawling metropolis and a melting pot for trade,
I love his voice.
finance.
I love it too, man. He's so good at narrating.
But in the autumn of 1888, an horrific story emerged from the capital's East End. A story so dreadful, it sent shockwaves around the world. One after another, destitute women of the East End fell victim to a vicious killer known as Jack the Ripper. Despite an extensive manhunt and a few close calls,
Manhunt! Dream!
Manhunt! Ah, you got the cloud!
the murders came to an abrupt end and left behind one of the greatest mysteries in the annals of crime.
I said anals. Hey yo, I'm just gonna pause it for a sec. Can we fucking talk about how he's making YouTube videos into fucking documentaries, like stuff that's better than what you fucking get on Discovery and everything, like
it's a fucking movie.
Yeah, exactly. And he says it himself. He's alone in doing all of this. And then you see companies using millions of dollars on making documentaries. Fam, hire this dude.
Yeah, I mean, okay, fucking if any fucking company is watching, like the quality of this dude's content, it's fucking astonishing.
And the work that he puts into it, like you can get a workaholic right here.
Yeah, this is a legend, honestly.
All right, let's go.
Okay.
Almost Beyond Belief, chapter 1.
In the East End of London, there's a district known as Whitechapel.
I've been there.
In the late 19th century, Whitechapel was known for its overcrowded slums, where many of the capital's poor and unemployed had taken refuge.
Yo, they did not call
Day
it
and
back
night,
in the day.
an army of
shit, dude, everybody was just black and white.
Labyrinthine network of dim-lit streets, courts, and alleys. One such place was a narrow passage known as George Yard.
It's George! George not found! We found him!
Was a residential complex known as George Yard
Building.
It was the morning of August the 7th, 1888, when an upstairs tenant named John Reeves headed up
Michael
to work.
Reeves.
Upon reaching the first floor landing,
Kylo Reeves.
Reeves encountered the body of a woman
Keanu Reeves.
lying upon her
Kylo
back
Reeves. What
in a
the
pool of
fuck?
blood.
Keanu, sorry.
Kylo.
Horrified by the sight,
All
he
wait.
stumbled down to
All times in this video are approximate. Oh,
the
okay.
street below in search for help. Constable Thomas Barrett was the first officer on the
Dude,
scene.
it's so sick.
He was
I
soon
know.
joined by Dr. Timothy
Holy
Killeen, who
shit.
conducted a brief examination. The woman had been stabbed 39 times, primarily in the
Yo,
chest
just kidding.
and abdomen.
Hey, can we just talk about how the hospital, like the doctor arrives 45 minutes after the police arrives?
Can we talk about the insane visuals going on?
Yeah, also that. Like
Holy
the
fuck.
amount of work that he's putting into this shit, like, and it will probably be like this the whole video through.
Like, honestly, like, I can't iterate this enough. It's so that's the reason why. Okay, so before the stream started, me and Lotz was like, "Oh, there's a new Lemmino video out." And
Yeah.
both of us started screaming in excitement because watching a Lemmino movie is like, yeah, I'm calling it a movie, but
It is a movie, dude. Don't even disrespect him.
it's like going to a cinema. And the even more poggers thing is I have it on a projector now, so it is like being at a cinema.
Have you made your popcorn, dude?
I don't have popcorn. Lots.
You have cartels at least.
No, I do have Pepsi though.
Oh, okay. Night saved. I got my water. You got your Pepsi. We're ready.
I don't even have enough money to buy food. I just have barely enough money to pay rent, so I don't.
It's okay. It's only the 9th. Don't worry. The month is almost over.
God, yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Let's go.
Dr. Killeen estimated that she had been dead for, quote, about 3 hours, thus placing the time of death at approximately 2:30 in the morning.
Okay.
The woman had likely been attacked.
So that pretty
where
much
she
went
was
3
found,
hours
as no
before
blood
the
found
doctor
beyond
was
the
there.
staircase landing.
Yeah.
But this was strange, as none of the
I
tenants
feel like
in
a
this crowded
psychopath
building
because I'm just
had
so
heard a single
excited
cry
for
for
watching
help
this.
or a disturbance of any kind. One exception was Amy Hewitt, a tenant who claimed to have heard a lone cry of murder. But this was early in the evening of August the 6th, and the scream had emanated
not the
from
best
outside
months.
the complex.
Mm.
Hewitt further explained, "The district round here is rather rough, and cries of murder are a frequent, if not nightly occurrence." The victim was eventually identified as 39-year-old Martha Tabram.
Damn, she looked
Tabram
good.
was a mother of 2 and had separated from
Yo,
her
she was
husband
2D?
many years prior. Her
Shit.
last known address was
Look at the
19 George
shading.
Street, a common
She looks
lodging
like
That chin, though.
less than 300 meters from the site of her death.
Yeah.
Tabram had
no.
made a living through prostitution,
it's
and one of her
offensive,
associates was a
like-
woman named...
Oh yeah, his victims was
Connolly
always
testified
prostitutes.
that on the evening
Prostitutes.
of August the 6th, she and Tabram had been out drinking with 2 soldiers.
Hey, can I say something? So
Yeah.
that probably means that Jack the Ripper was actually like staying over, because that was a hotel or like a motel, the place that she was found at.
Yeah, I mean, he was probably having a bunch of sex before.
I don't think he had sex. I think he just bought her and was like, "Hey, you're a prostitute, yeah? Okay, done for." No, but what
He must have gotten some pleasure out of it.
you think so? You think he actually
I
got
mean,
the? Or maybe he's into necromancy.
Yeah, but just like, why the fuck rent a hotel if you're not like gonna do it? You could have just fucking killed them on the streets.
True. It's
Yeah.
because he wanted to make sure that she actually was a prostitute.
Yeah.
You ain't getting much on the middle of the street, but in a hotel room, believe me.
Yeah.
All right, let's
Then,
go.
shortly before
Family,
midnight,
I'm just
the
kidding.
party of 4
Holy
had separated. Connolly took her client into Angel Alley, while Tabram guided hers into neighboring George Yard.
Whoa, she's the Flash.
It was the last time she saw Tabram alive.
It's the reverse Flash and the correct Flash.
Yo.
Barely 2 hours later, Constable Barrett had spoken to a soldier loitering near the north entrance of George Yard. The soldier had told Barrett that he was, quote, waiting for his mate who had gone away with a girl. Half an hour later, Tabram is presumed to have died.
Oh, it's the soldier who did it.
Both Connolly and Barrett were called upon to identify the soldiers, but all those accused could provide an alibi. One had been
I
at
got
home with his
donuts on
wife,
them.
another at
I'm
an
getting
army
the
base,
creeps.
and yet another in a completely different part of the city. This was enough for Inspector Edmund Reed, the lead investigator on the case,
Big up, Edmund.
to abandon this line of inquiry. Connolly and Barrett, having both picked out the wrong men, they could not be trusted again, as their evidence would be worthless. Even if a soldier had been responsible, no one could deduce a motive. The people of Whitechapel might have been accustomed to crime and violence, but the sheer brutality of this attack was as frightening as it was confounding. The crime is one of the most brutal that have occurred for some years. For a poor, defenseless woman to be outraged and stabbed in such a manner is almost beyond belief. These were the concluding remarks delivered at the final inquest held on August the 23rd.
Oh no, not my birthday.
Only a week later, things would go from bad to worse.
Oh shit.
Can I just say a fun fact real quick?
Yeah, what's up?
So, Jack the Ripper
Mm-hmm.
got like it's such a famous thing that, for the record, I did ethical hacking for a while, so this is how I am aware of it. Jack the Ripper is also a thing that you use to basically decode hashes, which basically mean you get the password from a hash. Because, I don't know, it's dissecting or something. Well, are you using an ad blocker, Lotz?
Yes, I'm gonna go over and use an ad block because we're getting ads now.
Revenue, though.
Nah.
12,692. 69. Yo, poggers.
69? What?
69. Don't you see? 12,692 likes. 69.
Oh. Funny number.
Oh, now you refreshed it.
Yeah,
now it's
there we go.
69. Oh my god.
Wait, is it no longer 69? Oh, no.
No, because you refreshed it. Wow.
Ah, there we go. So, okay. So now we're ready, right?
Responsible.
Yeah.
No one could deduce a motive. The people of Whitechapel
Let's go back to where we actually were.
delivered at the final inquest held on August the 23rd. Only a week later, things would go from bad to worse.
Oh my god. Not an atom of evidence, chapter 2. It is true, like, there wasn't a lot of evidences back then, but, like,
On the
police
morning of
work was
August
also
the
much
31st,
worse.
A man named Robert Paul left
Yeah,
his home on Foster Street and headed for work. After making a right turn into Bucks Row, he spotted a man standing in the road.
It's Jack!
The man turned around to face him and said, "Come and look over here. There's a woman lying at the pavement." The stranger was named Charles Cross, and he too had been on his way to work when he first caught sight of the woman. The two men now cautiously approached.
Oh my god.
The woman's hands were
Scared me.
cold to the touch, and Cross believed she was dead. Paul, however, thought he could sense faint breathing. But instead of seeking immediate help, Cross and Paul were more concerned about being late for work. As such, they quickly
course.
resumed their morning commute, hoping to notify policemen along the way. Fortunately, Constable John Neal was just around the corner. Neal was equipped with a lantern and found the woman lying on her back with a deep cut across the throat. The wound was still bleeding, and parts of her body were still warm. He was soon joined by Constable John Thane, who was sent at once to fetch a nearby doctor. Upon his arrival, shortly after 4 o'clock, Dr. Reese Llewellyn estimated that, quote, "She had not been dead more than half an hour."
Oh
In
shit.
other words, Cross and Paul had likely found the woman mere minutes after she
Yeah,
was
10
killed.
minutes after she was killed, yeah. That's fucking crazy, dude.
Furthermore, 3 officers had patrolled the
What
vicinity
if the man that
just a
founded
few
an
minutes
Insane
prior.
Among Us play
Constable Neal had
and
left
fucking,
Inspector Bucks Row at approximately
was like, oh,
3:15.
look what I found.
Exactly, like, what if that stranger that... Yeah, that stranger that they saw, that old man, he could have been Jack.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's like you killed a person in Among Us and then you're like, oh, look, a body!
Yeah, self-report. It's exactly
So too had
self-report.
Sergeant Henry Kirby, whereas Constable Thane
Kirby.
had merely passed the end of the street,
Kirby the Frog!
none of whom had seen nor
What?
heard anything amiss.
And you know Kirby?
Upon the body's removal to the mortuary,
Kermit.
a shocking discovery was
Oh
made.
my god.
Apart
Funny
from
sounds,
2
love it.
incisions in the throat, the woman had also been, quote, disemboweled. No organs had been removed, but Dr. Llewellyn found, quote, several incisions running across the abdomen. He also believed that the killer possessed, quote, some rough anatomical knowledge, for he seemed to have attacked all the vital parts. The victim was quickly identified. Her name was Marianne Nichols. And
Damn, girl!
Just 5 days before the murder.
She's looking nice.
Nichols had at least
You'd be
6
looking
children,
thick!
and her last known address was a common
don't
lodging house
insult the
at
victims.
56 Flower and Dean
That's
Street.
not insulting.
Telling someone they're thick.
On the night of her death,
Oh, yeah,
Nichols had
okay,
been
I-
traveling
Women
from
can
a
be
lodging
thick and
house
look
on
good,
Fall
dude.
Street,
What are you on about?
as she lacked the funds to pay for a bed.
It's something else if I call her
Seeking to
fat.
raise the money through prostitution, Nichols had then ventured down Osborne Street before meeting her friend Ellen Holland. The two of them shared a brief
Ellen
exchange,
Holland! Tom
but
Holland!
Nichols was visibly drunk.
Yo, it's
When they
Tom
parted
Holland's
ways around
mom.
2:30,
I think
Holland
that-
saw Nichols
then she
staggering
gotta be
peacefully
very old
along
today, dude.
Whitechapel Road. Barely an hour
She's
later,
way past the
she was
boomer.
found dead. Apart
Lady
from the
Tom
body
Holland was
itself,
dead.
the killer had left nothing in their
How
wake.
is Tom Holland?
No blood trail, no murder weapon, no witnesses. Inspector Joseph Helson, the lead investigator on the case, stated that, quote, "Not an atom of evidence can be obtained to connect any person with the crime." While the Nichols case ground to a screeching halt, its similarities with the Martha Tabram case had not gone unnoticed. In both cases, the attack had been needlessly ferocious, and there was no discernible motive. Both victims were prostitutes of roughly the same age and moved in the same circles.
By the way,
The
I'm still
only
printing
meaningful
that Mongols
difference
figurine.
was their injuries.
What did you say?
I'm still printing that Mongols figurine.
Oh, you're actually doing that?
Yeah, of course, dude. I was
Awesome.
really genuine when I wanted to print something.
Alright. This is what your money goes to, okay.
Yeah.
Tabram had been repeatedly stabbed, whereas Nichols had suffered multiple slash wounds. Differences aside, the prevailing assumption was that the same...
Wait! I think that's Jack the Ripper, you know. Right there.
Because he has a hat.
No, like, that just looks sus, you know, and everybody is sus of him.
Well, yeah, I think that might have. I don't know.
I think that
Yeah,
is
he-
Jack, you know.
Yeah, it's about spill too.
Ranged individuals had committed both murders, a conviction that would only grow stronger in the days that followed.
Oh, the music.
Fam, his editing,
Oh. Dude, I would suck this guy's dick.
Hanbury Street.
September 8th.
As the sun was rising on September the 8th, a man named John Richardson was on his way to work. At 4:45, he made a quick stop at 29 Hanbury Street. He went through the entrance and out the back door by way of a cramped hallway.
Why isn't there any male prostitutes?
That probably is.
Richardson then sat down on the
But
backyard
Jack
steps
wasn't really
before
finding
grabbing
pleasure
a
in them.
knife to trim a vexing
No.
piece of leather from
Yeah.
his boot. Once satisfied, he left the building and shut the front door behind him. About an hour later, a third-floor tenant of the same address, John Davis, plodded downstairs and into the hallway. The front door was now wide open, but the one in the back was closed. When Davis went to open it, he found the bloodied remains of a woman lying on her back just below the steps.
Oh.
Inspector Joseph Chandler was the first officer on the scene. After a brief inspection, he sent at once for a medic.
He looks thick.
Dr. George Phillips arrived at 6:30 and found the woman, quote, terribly mutilated. The
Oh,
throat
shit.
had been, quote, dissevered deeply, whereas the abdomen had been, quote, entirely laid open. The intestines had been, quote, lifted out of the body and placed by the shoulder of the corpse. The body was then
Holy
conveyed
shit.
to the mortuary, while Inspector Chandler and Dr. Phillips conducted a sweep of the backyard. Most of what they found belonged to the tenants of the building, but just below the resting place of the woman's feet, they found a small piece of cloth and 2 combs. The items had likely belonged to the victim, but it seemed to Dr. Phillips that they had been deliberately positioned and arranged by the killer. The post-mortem revealed that 2 brass rings had been forcefully removed from the victim's left hand. These rings were nowhere to be found. Portions of the victim's abdomen had also gone missing, including the womb. Dr. Phillips believed that, quote, the mode in which these portions were extracted showed some anatomical knowledge. This point was greatly expanded upon at a subsequent inquest.
Yo,
The injuries had been made by someone who had...
What did you say?
He has more colors. Look at them. Look at him.
It's
The
just
guy in
black
the
and white,
picture.
dude.
Yeah, but he has more detail.
Yeah, it's maybe like, I don't know.
considerable anatomical
Apparently
skill
after that,
and knowledge.
that's
There were
when
no
they got
meaningless
better
cuts.
graphics.
For instance,
Yeah,
no mere
they
slaughter
got the good
of
camera.
animals could have carried out these
New
operations.
NVIDIA update.
It must have been someone accustomed to the post-mortem room.
Instead
The
of living
victim
in
was
dude
quickly
world, they live in
identified
another more
as
detailed
Annie
world.
Chapman. Chapman's date of birth is a bit uncertain, but she was roughly 47 at the time of her death. She had at least 7 children, but was tragically only survived by 2. Her last known address was a common lodging house at 35 Dorset Street. On the night of her death, Chapman had been denied accommodations as she lacked the funds to pay for a bed. She was escorted off the premises by the night watchman, who then saw her vanish into a nearby alleyway. What happened to Chapman over the next few hours, nobody knows. Her whereabouts during this time is a complete mystery. But unlike the 2 previous cases, a witness in the Chapman case might have caught a glimpse of the killer. At 5:30 on the morning of September the 8th, a woman named Elizabeth Long spotted a man and a woman conversing outside 29 Hanbury Street. Long was positive that the woman she'd seen was Annie Chapman, but the man had stood with his back towards Long, so she never saw his face. Long did, however, manage to overhear a fragment of their conversation. The man had posed the question, "Will you?" To which the woman responded, "Yes."
Oh, they got married after that, probably.
Now, a lasting point of contention in the Chapman case is the time of death. According to Dr. Phillips, when he arrived at 6:30, Chapman had been dead for, quote, at least 2 hours. That would place her death at around 4:30. But according to Long, she saw Chapman alive a full hour later. Then there's the testimony of John Richardson. Richardson was the son of one of the tenants in the building. At 4:45, he made a routine checkup on the door to the basement, which had previously suffered a break-in. When he found it secure, he sat down on the backyard steps to trim a piece of leather from his boot. Even though he sat mere centimeters from the murder site, Richardson did not see a body. He was adamant on this point. "I could not have failed to notice the deceased if she had been there." To muddle the timeline even further, there's the testimony of Albert Kadosh. About 20 minutes past 5, Kadosh had gone through the...
I think that's maybe then like a mistake by the doctor.
Yeah.
Because like if so many evidence is pointing towards that she was both seen alive, but also like this dude was out in his backyard and couldn't see the victim, like.
How do you fuck up that bad though? Like what the fuck?
I know, like this is what you're meant to do, dude. Come on.
1888 police and doctors, do your work. God, get some.
Exactly.
Use your phones.
Come on, man. Yeah, exactly, man. Like
911 or
Google
something,
that shit or something like that. Come on, man.
Go on YouTube. And you're like...
backyard of 27 Hanbury Street when he heard voices coming from nearby. They were barely audible, however, and Kadosh had only made out the word "no." A few minutes later, he heard something falling against the wooden fence dividing the 2 yards. There's no one way to untangle this web of contradictions, but Dr. Phillips did concede the possibility that he'd miscalculated.
Hey, well, smart, Lassie.
The coldness of the morning and the great
Should
loss
have
of
Googled.
blood had skewed his opinion, which was largely based on the warmth of the body. So, presuming that Dr. Phillips did miscalculate and the recollections of Long and Kadosh were off by a few minutes, that would place Chapman's death at around 5:30 in the morning.
Damn.
By this point, the dim light of dawn would have provided the tenants of 29 Hanbury Street an unobstructed view of the murder site, some of whom had even slept with their windows open. In spite of this, the killer managed to evade detection and even made time to arrange the victim's possessions.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Chapter 3?
What
As the
is it
town and victims
leaving
gradually
against
melted,
Clue?
the public grew increasingly
I don't
anxious.
know, but
They
like,
were not only frightened
holy
by
shit.
the murders, but
I feel like a lot of
frustrated
people
with
is
the
just
police and
like,
their
it's true, like for instance, those two people who saw the body first and just left on
Yeah.
and was like, oh, I'm just hoping to find a police cop, because that's gonna be very likely for a police cop to be right around the corner, right?
Yeah.
Or for instance, like, medics,
I mean,
medics.
maybe he called the police with his iPhone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or like use one of those police apps today. Something, or at least tweet about it. Like, come on, man.
Cancel the killer on Twitter.
incompetence. Even across the pond were the efforts of the police fiercely criticized. The London police and detective force is probably the stupidest in the world.
Agreed.
But these mocking quotes and illustrations
And I love how it's the New York Times saying this. Of course, it's New York, America going against England, London.
This is probably a tweet. This is not a newspaper. This is a tweet. By the way, they tweeted this.
What
Exactly.
these mocking quotes and illustrations failed to capture were the overwhelming odds stacked in favor of the perpetrator. The police were up against someone
Why
who
is the
seemingly
drawing
struck
so
without
creepy? What
motive,
the fuck?
someone who left no murder weapon, and few witnesses. On top of that, the East End was
Oh,
severely
victims, which means that not victims, witnesses, which means that we're soon gonna be hearing about like people who've seen Jack.
Ooh.
overcrowded,
Or allegedly seen
while the
them.
police were
Yeah.
understaffed.
We all
As
know
one
who it
newspaper
was. It
put
was
it,
the police cop.
A man in the East End of London is a grain of sand, as invisible and almost as much beyond identification amid the masses.
Do you want to hear my theory?
At no
My game
point
theory?
were this
What's up, dude?
I think that he was a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I think because I just have a, like, because of the
Yeah,
he clearly knew where shit was, and he clearly like were discreet, and I feel like this guy probably
I don't think he was a doctor, but I think he might have been working for like maybe the military, and then like maybe it was a veteran today, because like that could be fucked up stuff in your brain after that. You've seen so much blood and gore, and then maybe he was a medic in the military and knew how shit was done through that.
But why were he arranging it? I feel like the way he arranges things is kind of like how doctors arrange their medical tools.
No,
before
but you
they-
have to remember how discreet he's doing this, like how good he's doing
Yeah,
all of this.
exactly.
No, I'm talking about like there's no evidence of him doing it.
Yeah. So if you were like a doctor or something, he would know exactly where to do it without it like being much of like evidence, and do it quick, so he had enough time to get. I mean, that's my theory. That's my game theory. Let's continue.
become more apparent than during the events of September the 30th.
Oh. A double. Oh yeah, there was a double murder. Yeah.
A double wombo combo.
Yeah, a double homicide.
They have two imposters.
On September the 29th, a routine Saturday meeting was held at the Socialist Club on
Oh,
Burnett
the quick
Street.
meeting.
When the meeting
Yo.
came to a close around midnight, all but a few members returned home. Those who remained proceeded to drink and socialize.
That's
Half an
good.
hour in September the 30th, Joseph Lave stepped outside to get some fresh air. Lave used the side entrance leading into Dutville's yard and lingered for about 10 minutes. Moments after Lave had gone back inside, Morris Eagle accessed the building via the same entrance. He too was a member of the club and had just returned after escorting a woman home.
What a
Neither of them
gentleman.
noticed anything
What a nice
unusual.
fellow.
20 minutes later, the sound of a horse and carriage could be heard trotting down Burnett Street. The driver was
Just use a
Louis-
car.
For everybody who doesn't know, that was cars back in the days. They didn't have a motor. They actually had like a heartbeat, lungs, and shit like that, and 4 legs, not 4 wheels. But alright, technically they did have wheels, but the thing moving them was having legs. So yeah, just for everybody's reference, if you didn't know.
They didn't
Deem
bicycle.
Schutz, the steward of the clubhouse. When Deem Schutz drove into Dutville's yard, his pony abruptly veered to the
My
left.
Little Pony. Sorry.
When he looked down to his right, he thought he could discern something in the darkness. Deemshut stepped down from his barrow, and after lighting a match, could see a woman lying on her side against the wall. Without even knowing if she was, quote, drunk or dead,
they were
rushed
back in
inside the
quality.
club to check on his wife.
They
When he
probably
found
had
her safe
bad
and sound,
FPS
he
issues.
alerted the other members, and a small crowd soon gathered outside. They could now see that the woman's throat had been, quote, fearfully cut, and that, quote, a stream of blood was trickling down the yard.
Hey, big up the horse for seeing
Eagle,
that.
Deemshut, and a few others.
Yeah, shout out to the horse. Shout out to Horse's
A
family.
growing crowd of bystanders waited for authorities to arrive. There was no sign of the perpetrator. But across the city, less than a kilometer to the west, an even more ghoulish discovery was about to be made. At 1:30 of the same morning,
Why are you running?
Oh my fuck.
Why are you running?
a space known as Mitre Square. Watkins' beat would take him through the square about
It's a
once
square.
every 13 minutes, and on this occasion, it was deserted.
Minecraft.
But in the time it took Watkins to complete another rotation, Mitre Square was turned into a crime scene.
Sus.
I next came in at 1:44.
What a
I
great bear,
turned to the
though.
right.
That's pretty precise, you know.
Yeah, that's a pretty good bear.
Yeah. Like 144, he must have been looking down at his watch.
I saw the body
you
of a
thinking
woman
about- I was thinking
lying
about
there
this
on her
girl.
back. I saw her throat was cut and her bowels protruding. The stomach was ripped up. She was lying in a pool of blood.
That's where the name come from. Probably. Dr. Ripper, because he's ripping out the stuff.
Dr.
True.
George Cicada
And they
Dr.
don't like
Frederick
people with
Brown
name.
soon
True.
converged upon the
Jack.
scene.
They don't like
They
jacks.
found terrible injuries inflicted upon the woman's face, throat, and abdomen. The intestines had been, quote,
Yo,
drawn out to
the
a large
graphics increased
extent
again.
and placed over the right shoulder.
It's because we're in
Among the many
October now
lacerations
instead of
to the
September,
face,
dude.
Dr.
They're
Brown noted that,
increasing.
quote, the lobe and auricle of
They're
the right
increasing the
ear
graphics
was cut
intensity.
obliquely through. Based on their expert
His
opinions,
mustache is so
coupled
great.
with the testimony of Watkins, the woman had
Shout out
died
to his
within
mustache.
minutes of her body being found.
Damn. So that means between the first body was found to the next body was found was 44 minutes. But technically, like, Jack the Ripper could maybe have done this like maybe half an hour before the first body was dead, then go to the other body because the first body was just found 44 minutes later. You get me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, maybe.
He's such a wombo combo man.
Yeah.
Back
He had
to
a
Burnett
mission.
Street, Dr. Frederick Blackwell and Dr. George Phillips had reached the same conclusion. The woman in Dutville's yard had died within minutes of her
Oh,
body
dude,
being
I just
found.
got a tweet, man. Lemmino, new video out now. Go and watch it.
Shout out to his family.
But unlike previous
Don't worry, dude. We're watching
victims,
it.
they only suffered injuries to the throat. There were no abdominal mutilations or anything else by which to connect the attack to the others. But the murder in Dutville's yard and the one in Mitre Square were separated by less than 1 kilometer and
Yo,
some
we be
45
running.
minutes.
Holy shit.
This allowed for a chilling possibility. It was suspected then, as it continues to be today, that when Deemshut came clattering through the gateway, he unwittingly interrupted the murder. The killer may even have become trapped inside Dutville's yard
Oh,
because
shit.
the gate on Burnett Street was the only point of entry. Perhaps they saw an opportunity to escape when Deemshut then rushed inside the club.
Oh.
From there, it would have taken them less than
Whoa.
15 minutes to reach Mitre Square. Plenty
Yo,
of
it's a
time
house.
to hunt for another victim. But it must be emphasized.
I'm just saying, if he had stood there, we would know today who Jack the Ripper probably was.
Yeah.
Or Jack would not give a fuck and kill him too.
Yeah. Probably the last one.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Jack was on the mission, and like sometimes like people just gotta go, you know.
that this is pure speculation. There is no evidence to suggest the two murders were even connected.
True. That's what a train says.
The woman in that
they went down in quality again. Fuck, ow.
Nah, she looks good, dude. She looks good. Look.
Bride was a Swedish
She looks
immigrant
like
who
she's
lived
been-
in
Ooh,
London
Swedish
for
as well,
14 years.
dude.
Following the death of her husband, she had made a living through prostitution. Her last known address was a common lodging house at 32 Flower.
Holy shit, a lot of kids actually like died back in the days, like So far, all of the women who we've seen, like the prostitutes, they've all had kids that died. God bless medical help today, man.
On the night of her death, Stride had been seen by quite an abundance of witnesses. First, she was seen in the company of a, quote, respectably dressed man around 11 o'clock. About a quarter to midnight, Stride was seen talking to a man who was, quote, decently dressed and had the
why do you
appearance
use
of a clerk.
20? Oh no,
Then,
it's not time.
only a
Okay,
few
sorry.
minutes before the murder, Stride was seen in the company of a man by Constable William
It
Smith.
makes sense.
The man was carrying a small
No,
parcel
wait, no, it does
wrapped in
make sense.
newspaper.
What?
Why is it 23rd, 45, and then 00 for 35? Is it like time like PM or AM? Because it's not. It is not 20. Is it minutes?
What are you on about? No, this is
Oh,
hours.
no, yeah.
It's 11 p.m., 11:45 p.m., and then 35 minutes past midnight.
Yeah, but it's 23 PM is nothing. 23 is nothing. That then it would
Yes,
be.
yes, it is. Look at my watch,
No,
for
that-
instance, right? It
yeah,
says
you have
8:53 p.m., but there's also
You have fucky wucky 24-hour clock. A PM and AM are means that it's 12-hour clock, and 12-hour clock
Yeah.
doesn't have 23. 23 wouldn't be PM. It would just be 23:45. That was my TED talk. Let's keep on rolling.
Are you just making a joke or what the fuck you want?
No,
about?
no.
This does make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It just doesn't make sense for me. It makes sense for the fact, but it isn't PM or AM because then it would be a 12-hour clock thing.
No, of course not. But if you want
Yeah.
this to be transferred over to PM and AM, then this is 11 p.m., 11:45 p.m., and 35
AM.
minutes. Not 35 minutes.
No,
AM.
35 AM.
35 a.m.
Oh no, 0:35 AM. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
5 concurrent viewers watching right now. 2 people talk about AM and PM. What's up, everybody? Let's continue.
And was of, quote, respectable appearance. It's unclear
He
whether
likes to
these
be,
descriptions are of the same
respectful.
person
Yeah.
or if Stride accosted multiple clients as the night
Ryan.
progressed.
He likes the
There
conversation.
Said
were
small
other
stream today.
witnesses,
Small
some
stream
less
today, that's
credible than
okay.
others, but the one that really stood out
Oh,
from the
the one
rest
didn't have
was
face.
Israel Schwartz.
Israel!
About a
He didn't
quarter
own a
to one,
face.
We
Schwartz
just
had
beat you guys 5-0. Get good, kids. Soccer reference. Okay, let's
been
continue.
walking down Burnett Street. As he came up to Dutfall's yard, he witnessed a man throwing a woman to the ground in front of the entrance.
Hey, that's rude,
The
man.
woman had, quote, screamed 3 times, but not very loudly. Schwartz would later identify this woman as Elizabeth Stride.
Oh.
Because he probably
Schwartz did not
she
try to
probably
intervene,
cut,
but
Yeah.
he opted
probably
instead to
had a cut
simply
on her
cross the
throat.
street. That's when he spied a second man on the opposite side who was lighting a pipe. The man who attacked the woman then appeared to address the second man by shouting the name Lipsky. The pipe
does that
smoker
mean?
then proceeded to
You
follow
like skiing?
Schwartz before eventually breaking away.
Run, Israel!
When taken at face value, this story appears to suggest that the killer had an accomplice by the name of Lipsky. This was indeed the interpretation of some government officials. But Inspector Frederick Abeline, one of the lead investigators on the case, had a very different interpretation.
Okay.
You see, the name Lipsky had gained notoriety in 1887 when a Jewish man by the name of Israel Lipsky was convicted of murder. Owing to the publicity of that case, the surname Lipsky had become an anti-Semitic slur. Abeline therefore deduced that the man who shouted Lipsky was directing an insult at Schwartz, who was described as having a, quote, strong Jewish appearance. The man with the pipe, meanwhile, may have been an innocent passerby who became frightened along with Schwartz.
when we harmonize.
Now, you know what? I actually think Jack the Ripper invented the word, like, for Jewish appearance just to have an alibi for saying that. Big brain move.
The imposter place.
Exactly.
He's so fucking smart.
Whether
Big
Abeline's
brain.
interpretation is correct, it's doubtful we'll ever truly know.
He's barbecuing.
Nevertheless, Schwartz's account is compelling, as he conceivably witnessed the moment when Elizabeth Stride was attacked.
I'm just thinking, right? Like if that is Jack, Why is Elizabeth not like screaming anything? Like, this is probably a man she doesn't know who's throwing around with her.
But at the same time, imagine if her throat were cut though. She wouldn't have the power to scream as loudly.
No, but he said he saw them and that he saw that he threw her. That's probably, and she wasn't killed there. I think she wasn't killed there, right?
No, but you wouldn't necessarily die immediately if you.
No, but if you're cutting a throat, blood is gonna be spazzing out.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you.
So
That is, yeah.
hey yo,
Why don't you scream for more help? What the fuck?
yeah, exactly. Like
Back in Mitre Square,
that's what mom and dad
large
always
crowd
tells you if
spectated
you're
the
younger.
descent
If
of the
somebody
posse,
comes up to you,
all
scream.
driven by their morbid
Yeah.
curiosity
Scream
to get
pussy.
a glimpse of the body. The post-mortem revealed that the killer had
CBT.
extracted a few organs,
Oh,
including the womb and left kidney.
why?
According to Dr. Brown, this extraction required, quote, a good deal of knowledge, which he likened to that of a butcher. By contrast, Dr. Cicada did not find any signs of, quote, great anatomical skill.
Cicada, another video he's
The
made.
woman in Mitre Square was
Oh,
identified
that's
as
a great video.
46-year-old
Yeah.
Catherine Eddowes. Eddowes had at least 5 children, but after escaping her abusive husband, she had become estranged from her family. Her last known address was a common lodging
You
house.
see this again? Kids dying. Not even a year.
Oh no!
Like, holy shit. And this one. No. Let me just go back a little bit. This one didn't even die.
He's still alive today.
Estranged from her family. Her last known
He's
address
immortal.
was a common lodging house at 55 Flower and Dean Street. On the night of her death, Eddowes had been out drinking. She got so drunk that around 8:30, she was found lying on the sidewalk in Aldgate High Street, surrounded by a crowd. The commotion attracted a few officers, who then
That man
escorted
doesn't have
Eddowes to a
focus.
nearby police station.
Nearby, all the way across the city.
There, she was locked in a cell until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Nearby, just in a different country.
Yeah. Just across the stage, you
After
know?
being released from jail, Eddowes was likely spotted in the company of a man in the vicinity of Mitre Square.
He likes the squares.
Yeah.
Only one
That is
person
actually
witnessed
true, like,
Joseph Lavender
a lot of
paid close attention to the
areas
couple.
in London, at least in
The man
London,
had the
is
appearance
just something
of a
with
sailor
square.
and wore a, quote,
Yeah.
reddish
Times
handkerchief
Square.
around his neck.
Yeah, but that's not in
While
London.
Lavender did identify
London
the woman
Square.
as Catherine Eddowes,
That is
he never
actually
saw
in
her
London.
face.
Wait.
Nevertheless,
Leicester
the
Square.
finding was only made some 10 minutes before Eddowes' body was discovered by
Mama
Constable White.
Square.
What's so incredibly tragic about the Eddowes case is how narrowly the killer escaped justice.
True.
First of all, the only private residence in Mitre Square was occupied by a policeman and his family.
Oh.
They had slept right next to an upper floor window overlooking the murder site.
I mean, like, it's a bit harsh to expect just because you're a police cop, you have to wake up at the smallest amount of sounds and everything. Like, we clearly saw it from that apartment where she was just laying in the backyard that nobody woke up. And now to expect that, but a police cop lived right next to it. Why didn't he see her? Well, it's in the middle of the night.
2 seconds, gotta take my drugs.
Oh, alright.
That I
No worries.
legally obtained Twitch.
So, so far, so good. Oh, my sexy room. My little sister's Chromecast, you know. Nah, small stream today, yeah, not the biggest one. That's okay though. That's okay. We'll deal with it. I'll actually remove the text to speech, but nope, not now. Text to speech, but there we go. So, I was wondering actually, like, will it be possible? I'm gonna figure that out later. So, gonna real quick say it in the stream, in the chat. Oh, that's good spelling. Are you back, Lassie?
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
Second of all, a night
You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
An upper floor window overlooking the murder site. Second of all, a night watchman and retired policeman had been cleaning a warehouse within earshot of the murder site. He would routinely hear the footsteps of patrolling officers, yet heard nothing at the time of the murder. Finally, Constable James Harvey had glanced into Mitre Square at roughly 20 minutes to 2. That's right in between the sighting by Lavender and the body's discovery. Harvey should have had an unobstructed view of the murder site, yet he failed to notice anything suspicious. Was it too dark? Was the killer standing just a few meters away, cloaked in shadow? Did one or more witnesses get the time wrong? While the killer did ultimately escape, they did not do so without leaving a trace. Shortly before 3 o'clock, a blood-stained piece of cloth was found near the entrance to a building a few blocks to the northeast. It proved to be a ripped portion of the apron worn by Eddowes. The patch had evidently been torn off and then discarded by the killer upon their escape. Now, on the wall above this patch of apron, someone had written a message. "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." To this day, both the meaning and the author of this message remain in doubt.
Yeah, thank you. Because I didn't fully understand it.
I didn't really get it.
Or even away from the Jewish community. Was it completely unrelated to the murder?
It's an early side of Hitler.
Similar questions would soon be raised by a few letters. Letters which had supposedly been written and posted by the killer.
See, here is what I...
You didn't read, what the fuck?
No, here is what I'm thinking then, right? If... Let's for fun just say it's a doctor, right?
Yeah.
A doctor must have written thousands of things, like notes or anything. You should then be able to, like, take the doctor's notes and compare them to the letters and see, because everybody has their own unique little ways of writing. You can legit find criminals just by looking, like, how they write. How do they write this? You know that, right? Like, everybody writes in their own way. So, if it's the doctor, go and check out the previous letters, check out the notes, and we'll have the answer. All right.
3 days before the murder of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, the Central News Agency of London received a letter in the post, the author of which claimed responsibility for the recent murders and to be planning for the, quote, next job.
Ooh,
Then,
it's gonna
in
work
the aftermath of the 2 killings, the same agency received a blood-smeared postcard. It contained details about the atrocities, which the author described as a, quote, double event. On the off chance that the letters were genuine, the police decided to make them public. The hope was that someone would recognize the handwriting.
See?
Fortunately, no one ever did. Instead, it merely served to advertise the name with which the letters had been signed.
Yours truly, Jack the Ripper.
Opinions on the letters' authenticity were divided back then and continue to be today. Most notably, the Dear Boss letter had promised to, quote, clip the lady's ears off and send them to the police. The police never received such a package, and neither of the 2 victims had had their ears removed.
Yeah, exactly.
But you may recall that the right earlobe of Eddowes had been, quote, cut obliquely through. Was this a botched attempt by the killer to keep their promise? Or was it merely one of numerous lacerations with no connection to the letter? The contents of the letters notwithstanding, modern linguistic analysis does suggest that they were penned by the same hand. So, hoaxes or not, the authors were likely one and the same.
Maybe had 2 different handwritings.
True.
However, the handwriting bore, quote, no resemblance at all to the message written above the torn patch of apron. Now, the publication of the letters inspired an onslaught of copycats. Agencies all over London were soon inundated with correspondence imitating the other 2.
This is another thing. Everybody just fucking stop doing that, okay? We're trying to find out who Jack the Ripper actually is, okay? Stop fucking doing that.
But at least one of them might have been genuine, not because of the contents of the letter, but rather the contents of a box with which it was delivered.
Oh.
On October the 16th, a man named George Lusk received a small package in the post. Lusk was the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, a small group of local tradesmen who sought to identify the killer. The package consisted of a letter and a cardboard box containing half a kidney.
Oh.
The doctors who examined the kidney all agreed that it was human, but whether it was the same left kidney removed from the body of Eddowes could not be determined. It could, for instance, have been an elaborate hoax by a medical student or someone with access to human organs.
Yeah.
The author of the accompanying letter, meanwhile, insisted that the kidney did belong to the victim and that they had fried and eaten the other half.
Okay.
A popular theory at
You
the
just wanted
time,
some food.
one that still
Yeah.
is today, was that some of the letters had been fabricated by the press. According to Chief Inspector John Littlechild, the letters were, quote, a smart piece of journalistic work. Assistant Commissioner Robert Anderson dismissed the letters as, quote, the creation of an enterprising London journalist. Meanwhile, Chief Constable Melville McNaughton thought he could discern the, quote, stained forefinger of the journalist. There are a few candidates for who this journalist might have been, but there is no solid evidence against any one of them. Whether it was a hoax by an enterprising journalist or the genuine prose of the Ripper, the letters did nonetheless receive widespread attention. They commanded space in virtually every newspaper and dominated much of the public discourse throughout October, a month which passed without a single atrocity bearing the signature marks of Jack the Ripper. Perhaps it was finally over.
Hell no!
Aw.
It is pretty certain that the master has become frightened and has suspended his horrible work for the present, if not for good.
The Work of a Devil, Chapter 6.
On the morning of November the 9th, a merchant and property owner named John McCarthy was going through his bookkeeping. McCarthy was the landlord of Miller's Court, and the tenants of room 13 had fallen behind on their rent. McCarthy sent at once for his assistant, Thomas Boyer, to collect the money at 11:15. After knocking twice
That
without
drone
response,
shot, though.
Boyer went around the corner to peer through a window.
How did they get a
But
drone
his
in
view was
there?
obstructed by a coat
In
or
1910.
curtain, so Boyer had to reach through a broken window pane to pull it aside. That's when he saw the severely mutilated body of a woman lying upon a bed in the corner of the room.
Oh, that's where you just fucking run.
Miller's Court was soon crawling with police, but the door to room 13 was locked and had to be forced open with a pickaxe.
Yo, they're
What they
mining.
found inside
Minecraft!
was truly the stuff of nightmares. The sight we saw, I cannot drive away from my mind. It looked more like the work of a devil than of a man. The whole scene is more than I can describe. I hope I may never see such a sight again. Dr. George Phillips described the body as, quote, cut all to pieces. Dr. Thomas Bond described the woman's face as, quote, hacked beyond recognition. The abdomen had been, quote, emptied of its viscera, while the throat had been, quote, severed all round, down to the bone.
Okay, I'm gonna come with a little note here, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, this body doesn't seem like it's coming from Jack the Ripper. Simply because this one, as they say hacked beyond recognition. Now it doesn't look like somebody who's been doing this like professionally, like taking out the womb and everything. Now they've just hacked it. Second of all, I think the goal of Jack the Ripper was to like show this to the world, and you're not gonna show shit to the world if she is hit in a room in a bed. All of the other victims has just been found on the pavement.
I mean, to be fair, they would have found her much later, though. They would have found her anyway, because they were gonna. Open the room
but then they probably wouldn't see the work of Jack the Ripper because there would be maggots and everything all over that body.
I mean, they would still see the works. I mean, it would be days.
Yeah, but
after.
that's definitely enough time for everything, and I think Jack the Ripper's message was that don't be a prostitute, you have better things with your life, kind of thing, in his own messed up way. Because he was definitely a serial killer going after the prostitutes.
Yeah, that is for sure.
Yeah. So
The body had been monstrously disfigured, with loose organs dispersed all around it.
yeah.
The room itself was sparsely furnished and offered little in the way of clues.
Wait, was it the
Two
room number
tables,
13?
1 or 2 chairs,
Oh no.
and a small cabinet.
Oh god.
Amongst the ashes of a fireplace, the police found patches of burned clothing.
That can't be.
Had the killer tried to
Must
dispose
have
of
something
evidence,
to do with it.
or had it merely been used for warmth and light? The victim was identified almost immediately. Her name was Mary Jane Kelly, and she was the tenant of 13 Miller's Court. But nearly everything about Kelly's life is shrouded in mystery. She was presumably of Welsh or Irish descent and in her mid-20s, making her the youngest victim by far. But given that no matching records of a Mary Jane Kelly have been found, it's probable that she was using a fake identity. In any case, Kelly had not been living alone. Up until a few days before the murder, she had cohabited with a man named Joseph Barnett. They had only separated
There's a bunch of
on
people named
October
Josephs.
30th because
Yeah.
Barnett disapproved of Kelly's prostitution and the people with whom she associated. But they did see each other again. On the evening of November the 8th, Barnett paid Kelly a visit. Upon his arrival, he found Kelly in the company of a woman who was just about to leave. Unfortunately, there are conflicting accounts about who this woman was, when Barnett arrived, and how long he stayed. If we choose to believe Barnett, he arrived at some point between 7 and a quarter to 8 and left before 9 o'clock. Shortly before midnight, Kelly was spotted in the company of a man by her neighbor, Mary Ann Cox. When Cox passed the couple, they were about to enter Kelly's room. Cox bid Kelly goodnight, but she was, quote, very much intoxicated and barely able to respond. Once they had gone inside, Cox could hear Kelly singing.
He said
When
cock.
Cox then left the court about an hour later, Kelly could still be heard singing. By 2 o'clock, Kelly had apparently ventured back outside, for she was spotted by a man named George Hutchinson. The two of them were supposedly well acquainted, and Kelly had asked if he could spare a few coins. But Hutchinson was broke, and Kelly was desperate for money, so they soon parted ways. Moments later, Hutchinson observed Kelly being accosted by a well-dressed man. The two of them had a seemingly jovial interaction and began walking north. Hutchinson found it suspicious that such a well-dressed man would seek the company of a woman like Kelly. As such, when the couple passed him by, he scrutinized the man's appearance. He was, for instance, carrying a pair of gloves in his right hand and a small parcel in his left.
He looks sus.
Hutchinson decided to shadow the couple as they proceeded to Miller's Court. Before they vanished up the court, the man handed Kelly a red handkerchief, and she had supposedly told him, "All right, my dear, come along. You will be comfortable." Hutchinson remained in the vicinity until 3 o'clock, but neither Kelly nor the man reappeared. At roughly the same time, Cox returned home. In stark contrast to the loud singing upon her last departure, Cox was now struck by the complete absence of sound and light from Kelly's room. Finally, at approximately 4 o'clock,
That
a
must have
tenant
been the
above
guy.
and a woman
Yeah.
across from Kelly's room heard cries of murder. The voice was that of a woman, and it appeared to emanate from nearby.
See, if that was the guy, he would have killed her before that and left, right?
Would he?
I mean, like, why would he go to sleep with her and then kill her?
Because he's a serial killer?
Do you know what goes through a brain of a serial killer, Lassie? Should I be nervous?
No, I mean...
I'm just saying, for me it's weird. It doesn't seem like Jackie's the one who's patient about it.
I think Jack is a really patient dude.
Yeah, but not about like this. I don't think he would go through a whole hour just to sleep.
I don't know.
No, neither do I.
Meanwhile, other denizens of the court heard no screams at all. According to Dr. Bond, Kelly died between 1 and 2
That
o'clock
might
in the
just
morning.
might be because they were
Dr.
wearing
Phillips placed the
high.
time-
Wait. This dude?
Yeah, haven't you noticed? It's been the same people that have discovered this, and like I think there is a like team investigating this altogether.
No. I'm talking about that suspect they drew.
Yeah.
Huh? Mustache? Thick face?
Yo.
Where is he? Huh?
Nah, that doesn't look similar. Nah.
Oh, okay.
1 and
No,
Fuck,
no,
I
it
o'clock
doesn't.
tried.
in the morning.
I tried.
Dr. Phillips placed the time of death a few hours later. But some witnesses were quite adamant that they had seen or even spoken to Kelly as late as 8 or 10 o'clock in the morning. Keep in mind that her body was discovered at 11:15. These contradictions are difficult to reconcile, and the precise time of death eludes us to this day.
See, this is what I'm saying. There's so much they did wrong back then with like the police work and medical work. Like, if they just could have been more precise, man.
Yeah.
I know it's harsh because it's like almost 150 years ago, but god damn it.
You should have used Google.
Yeah.
Mary Jane Kelly is typically regarded as the Ripper's final victim. Along with Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, and Catherine Eddowes, she is part of the canonical 5. The 5 victims
The
most
canon.
likely have been slain by the same hand. Martha Tabram might have been a victim of Jack the Ripper, but opinions are divided. The same is true of at least a handful of other cases. Even the canonical
I don't
5
like the
are
extreme
not without
scary
controversy,
music. I don't like
so
it.
the total number of victims is a matter of debate.
I'm just saying, like, this picture up here, that shit looks scary.
Yeah.
She
that
looks
is
all
just-
ghostly and everything.
Yeah, that is nightmare fuel.
Yeah. I definitely don't believe Jack did all of them. I can't believe he did maybe the 5 and maybe some of the others in the handful, but I feel like there was a lot of copycats, as they even said they got
Yeah.
letters and everything. Somebody who wanted to fuck everything over.
Yeah.
So
Presuming that Kelly was indeed the final victim, one has to
you're
wonder
funny,
why.
man.
Why did the murders come to such a sudden end? Did a Ripper give in to fears of being caught? Were they imprisoned for a different crime? Perhaps they succumbed to an illness or committed suicide. Could they have migrated to another country? Perhaps they deliberately changed their modus operandi.
Or maybe they
to
just
confuse
stopped.
police.
Yeah.
The possibilities are virtually endless, which means there is no shortage of suspects.
Amazing.
Sussy back up, Bobo.
Lost amongst almost in theorists.
Among Us. Oh.
Following the murder of Mary Ann Nichols, a rumor began to circulate that someone called Leather
See, this is
Apron-
also the hard thing, right? Everybody fucking has a mustache! And the suspect is one with a mustache. Come on,
was
guys.
in the habit
They're
of
all in on it.
abusing
Just wait and see.
prostitutes. The name quickly
They're all
made its
Jack.
way into the press, and soon enough it became synonymous with a killer. In fact, Leather Apron was the predominant pseudonym before Jack the Ripper. But the man identified as Leather Apron was soon cleared of all suspicion. His real name was John Picer, and he was in a different part of London on the night when Nichols was attacked. This misguided manhunt is somewhat emblematic of the whole investigation. The police pursued even the most tenuous of leads due to a lack of evidence and mounting pressure from the public. They interviewed thousands, investigated hundreds, and developed numerous theories along the way. In the words of Inspector Frederick Abeline, "Theories. We were lost almost in theories. There were so many of them." In an effort to narrow down the search, the police used a primitive form of criminal profiling. The idea was to analyze the available evidence to try and
use
gauge
Google.
what sort of person had committed the crimes. This profile was prepared by Dr. Thomas Bond, and he described the Ripper as a strong, middle-aged man with an inoffensive appearance who dressed respectably. Bond's most controversial assessment was that the killer possessed
Bond?
quote, "no
James, is that
scientific
you?"
or anatomical
Yo,
knowledge."
James Bond is the
This
killer.
stood in direct opposition to
No,
the
he's
opinion
the one fucking talking, dude. He's the one coming with... He's the doctor.
Can we just say, like, appreciate the fact that you have 3 people watching? You've been going on for 1 hour and 48 minutes. Can we?
I think
Can
2
we
of them
get
is you
some-
and I, but I don't know about who the last one is. Hello, last one.
Hello.
Most of whom ascribe the Ripper with at least a basic understanding of anatomy. Based on the witness accounts,
The
the
Thanos!
Ripper was a
Do
man
you
of
see Thanos?
average height with a medium to stout build in his late 20s to mid-30s. He wore dark clothes, including a hat of some sort, and had a mustache. But this sort of aggregation or
Everyone has
tabulation of
mustache.
accounts can be quite deceptive. Not only are many details inconsistent, but they could be describing entirely different people. For all we know, none of the witnesses ever laid eyes on Jack the Ripper. So much is up for debate that one can build a case against almost any suspect. Some have even entertained the possibility that the Ripper was a woman,
Yeah,
or
I know
possibly a
about
man
that.
disguised as a woman. While Jill or Jackie the Ripper is an interesting theory, it has failed to achieve any widespread support.
Yeah.
I
What
mean,
is
to be fair, they were
rarely
really
indisputable
sexist
is
back
that
in
the
the
Ripper
day.
was either a resident of or otherwise familiar with the East End. After all, he managed to narrowly evade capture on multiple occasions, which implies intimate knowledge of byways and patrol routes.
True.
He likely had some
Yeah.
form of employment, as the murders were committed around weekends and public holidays, and he may have had some degree of anatomical knowledge. With this unshakable profile in hand, let's take a closer look at a few suspects. The question is, where do we even begin?
Top left.
According to criminal profiler and FBI Special Agent John Douglas, the Ripper was not only a local, but was likely interviewed by the police.
Oh, shit.
If Douglas is correct, the Ripper might be someone we've already met. Either a witness or a person close to one of the victims.
I think it's
What
the
about
guy
John
that found the first body was like, oh, look, I just found them. Okay, back to work. I think that's the guy.
You think so?
I think it's the self-report Andy. I think it's the Among Us sussy imposter self-report Andy.
I
We
think
solved it.
I think you've been playing too much Among Us, dude.
Richardson, the
Sus?
witness in the Chapman case who sat down on the backyard steps to trim a piece of leather from his boot. Richardson was indeed
leather.
suspected by the police, but they found, quote, not a shred of evidence against him. His mother also lived on the premises, so he had good reason to be there.
If it was his premises, of course.
What
Yeah.
about George Hutchinson, the witness who followed Mary Jane Kelly after she was accosted by a well-dressed client? Hutchinson never clarified his motivation for shadowing the couple. He merely stated that he was surprised to see a man
Was
so
a creep.
well-dressed in the company of a woman like Kelly. Was he surprised because he was concerned? Was he jealous? Was it about money?
He was
After all,
horny.
Hutchinson was broke, and the client appeared to be wealthy. Perhaps he waited outside the court with the intention of mugging this well-dressed client. There are many question marks surrounding Hutchinson. He has never been positively identified, so next to nothing is known about his life. This makes it very difficult to build a strong case against him. Hutchinson was interrogated by the police, but ultimately convinced Inspector Frederick Abeline that he was telling the truth. But not every witness attracted such attention from the police. Take for instance Charles Cross, the man who discovered the body of Marian Nichols.
That's the one you're talking
Exactly,
about.
That's the one. That's the sussy backup.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, he's the guy.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, let's see what the evidence is.
On the morning of August the 31st, Charles Cross left his home on Doveton Street and headed for work.
Yo, he's flashing though.
When he turned into Bucks Row, he happened upon the body of Marian Nichols. Moments later, he was joined by Robert Paul, and events transpired as previously described. Despite his proximity to the crime, Cross appears to have escaped suspicion from both the press and the police. He was evidently seen as the innocent passerby that he appeared to be. But in recent years, that perception has been challenged. The argument is that Cross was in the act of committing the murder when he was interrupted by the approaching footsteps of Paul. Cross then
Self-report.
concealed the murder weapon and portrayed himself as someone who just found the body. The injuries inflicted upon Nichols would be consistent with
listen to my theory, okay? So you know, we know for a fact that she was still breathing, okay? And like she must have been killed. I feel like if she was still breathing,
Yeah, that was faintly breathing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it doesn't take too long for like.
No, of course not.
I would assume like.
But how about this?
Mm-hmm.
This is Jack the Ripper and his apprentice.
I don't think he has an apprentice. I think that's straight up Jack the Ripper, and then the older guy was like, "Oh, wow, sus," and he was like, "Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm gonna do a crew meeting right now."
But this dude, he was not like working as a medic. He did not have any medical experience.
No, but I mean, they didn't necessarily say that she like the stuff happened with her, because it didn't do it with the first bodies, right? So he might have learned after doing, I don't know. He might have done a bit of research.
Maybe went to Google.
Interruptions were less severe than those of later victims. What's interesting about Cross is that he likely testified under a false name. He claimed to be employed as a carman, and his address was given as 22 Doveton Street. But surviving records show that in 1888, this address was occupied by a man named Charles Lechmere. Lechmere was also employed as a carman, and on at least one occasion went by the name Charles Cross, as it was the surname of his stepfather. It is now widely believed that Charles Lechmere was the man who appeared at the inquest, and that he assumed the name of his stepfather when he testified. His motivation for doing so has been the source of much speculation. Was he trying to conceal his identity, or was it merely a force of habit? After all, contemporary examples of people doing the exact same thing are not difficult to find.
True.
The most compelling evidence against Lechmere is that his morning commute between home and work roughly coincides with the time and place of the murders. Except for the murders of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, who were killed on Sunday, the only day when Lechmere would have been free from work. Not only that, but all the murders were committed around weekends and public holidays. Why would a man who supposedly timed the murders with his morning commute gravitate towards days of rest?
True.
In any case, Lechmere's mother lived a few blocks south of Burnett Street, the neighborhoods around which is also where Lechmere spent his childhood. As such, it's speculated that Stride and Eddowes were killed after Lechmere paid a late-night visit to his mother. While he claimed to be employed at a delivery firm known as Pickford's, there are no surviving records of his employment. If he did work for Pickford's, there is a fair chance that he delivered meat and would thus have been exposed to slaughter and blood on a daily basis. Lechmere remained in East London until his death in 1920 at the age of 71. While there is no evidence of Lechmere ever being suspected by the police, it is difficult to believe that he was completely overlooked. Many case files have not survived, so any doubts investigators might have had could have long since disappeared. Now, a witness who definitely attracted attention was Joseph Barnett.
Oh yeah, Joseph Barnett. I think he is what most people. I think this is the guy that most people thinks is Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
I think this is the dude who has the most evidence against him.
Joseph Burnett was the man who lived with Mary Jane Kelly up until a few days before the murder. He and Kelly had supposedly met around April of 1887, and they eventually moved to 13 Miller's Court. Burnett was employed as a fish porter, but for reasons unknown, he lost his job between July and August of 1888. From that point onwards, the couple struggled to pay rent, and Kelly resorted back to prostitution. Now,
Hey,
those
she
who
just
believe
wanna
that
help
Burnett
out, you
was the
know?
Ripper view
Yeah.
his loss of employment as a turning point. The argument is that Burnett was so overcome with guilt and anguish for driving Kelly back to prostitution that he went on a murder spree, murdering one local prostitute after another in a desperate attempt to frighten Kelly off the streets. While most of this is
that
pure
makes
speculation,
sense.
it is true that Burnett disapproved of Kelly's prostitution. You may recall that Burnett separated from Kelly on October the 30th because he disliked the prostitutes with whom she associated. Kelly never went on the streets when she lived with me. She would never have gone wrong again, and I should never have left if it had not been for the prostitutes stopping by the house. This might further explain why Kelly was the Ripper's final and most viciously mutilated victim, the implication being that Burnett felt rejected by Kelly and wanted revenge for the breakup. According to Burnett, he did pay Kelly a visit on the evening of November the 8th, but they had parted on quote, friendly terms. He then supposedly went home, played a card game until 12:30 before going to bed. Now, Kelly is presumed to have died in the early hours of November the 9th, so Burnett could have returned to Miller's Court sometime after midnight. While the police did subject him to 4 hours of interrogation, Burnett was ultimately released without charge. Then there's the matter of the locked door. When the police
true, the
arrived at
glass
Miller's
was
Court,
broken through.
They had to force the door open
Yeah.
with a pickaxe. This raised an
Mining.
important question. How did the killer lock the door behind him? According to Burnett, the key to room 13 had been missing for some time. Because of this, he and Kelly would, quote, open the door by reaching through the broken window. The door was said to be equipped with a, quote, catch lock, and evidently locked itself upon being closed. If that's true, mystery solved. But even if the door was not self-locking, there's still an obvious solution. All the killer would have had to do is observe Kelly using the window trick and then employ that same technique to fasten the door upon leaving. But those who favor Barnett as the Ripper offer yet another solution. The key never went missing. Instead, Barnett is said to have stolen the key and then used it on the night of the murder. These solutions are all equally valid, and it's impossible to know which one is correct. There is a
Fuck
slight
me, man.
variation of this theory which states that Barnett did murder Kelly, but was not the Ripper. Instead, he merely emulated the Ripper to deflect attention away from himself. Once again, this is pure speculation, but the murder of Kelly did somewhat differ from the rest in that it was committed indoors.
Exactly, that's what I'm
Burnett
saying, Lasse.
remained in the East End until his death in 1926 at the age of 68. While it's
So
often
close to
common for
69.
suspicion to fall upon
So
witnesses
close to
and
69, man. I'm
acquaintances,
disappointed.
Victorian detectives did pursue other lines of inquiry. One prominent theory was that the Ripper suffered from insanity, and a prime suspect in that category is Aaron Kosminski.
Kosminski, the man.
The man with no face.
Yeah.
The Whitechapel murders investigation was overseen by numerous high-ranking officers within the Metropolitan Police. One of them was Assistant Commissioner Robert Anderson. Upon his retirement, Anderson repeatedly and unequivocally stated that Jack the Ripper had been identified.
Oh.
There was no doubt whatever as to the identity of the criminal. Without disclosing the name of the suspect, Anderson described him as a, quote, low-class Polish Jew who was, quote, safely caged in an asylum. He'd been identified by a witness who was described as, quote, the only person who ever had a good view of the murderer. This unnamed witness had supposedly refused to testify because the suspect was, quote, a fellow Jew. I am almost tempted to disclose the identity of the murderer, but no public benefit would result from such a course. While Anderson never revealed the name of the suspect, his colleagues were a bit more forthcoming. Chief Inspector Donald Swanson revealed that his surname was Kosminski. Yet another high-ranking officer, Melville McNaughton, described Kosminski as a homicidal and misogynistic resident of Whitechapel. Surviving records show that an Aaron Kosminski was admitted to a psychiatric hospital in 1891. Aaron was indeed from Poland, he was Jewish, and had lived in Whitechapel. He suffered from auditory hallucinations and a paranoid fear of being fed by others. He He was trained as a barber, but had, quote, not attempted any kind of work for years. It's unclear when his mental health began to decline, but upon being institutionalized, Aaron was deemed to be harmless. He was, quote, quiet and well-behaved, and, quote, apathetic as a rule. Only on rare occasions would he get, quote, excited and violent. However, before his confinement, Aaron had once threatened his sister with a knife. The case against him largely hinges upon the claims made by Anderson, Swanson, and McNaughton, especially the claim that an unnamed witness identified a suspect named Kosminski. But the descriptions of that suspect are not entirely consistent with Aaron Kosminski. For instance,
I see it.
McNaughton stated that the suspect...
Do you see it, dude? Do you see how the nose here is different from this dude's nose?
Yeah. The eyes are a bit different too.
Yeah.
About March 1889. Aaron was first confined in 1891. Swanson wrote that the suspect had been, quote, sent to the asylum and died shortly afterwards. Aaron was still alive at the time and spent nearly 3 decades in psychiatric care. As such, it is possible that the suspect Kosminski was someone other than Aaron Kosminski. It's also possible that these inconsistencies were mere lapses in memory. After all, these events were recounted years or even decades after the fact, and McNaughton even confessed to writing solely from memory. Regardless of the suspect's true identity, Anderson was the only one who seemed convinced of his guilt. McNaughton ultimately favored a different suspect and stated that, quote, many homicidal maniacs were suspected, but no shadow of proof could be thrown on any one. Inspector Edmund Reed was of the same opinion. Now we have Sir Robert Anderson saying that Jack the Ripper was a Jew. That I challenge him to prove. I challenge anyone to prove that there was a tittle of evidence against man, woman, or child. So when Anderson wrote that there was, quote, no doubt whatever as to the identity of the criminal, he merely expressed his personal opinion. There was in fact ample doubt and no consensus amongst the police. But in recent years, Aaron Kosminski has been resurrected as a prime suspect due to a controversial DNA analysis.
Yes, thank you!
Back in 1888, Acting Sergeant Amos Simpson is said to have stolen a blood-stained shawl from the crime scene of Catherine Eddowes. This shawl was then passed down from one generation to the next before being submitted for DNA testing in 2011. DNA samples were extracted from the shawl and then compared against maternal descendants of Eddowes and Kosminski. In both cases, it was a match. If the subsequent news coverage is to be believed, the mystery has now been, quote, definitively solved. Aaron Kosminski was Jack the Ripper.
Russell Edwards claims Aaron Kosminski, a 23-year-old Polish immigrant who ended up dying in an asylum, was definitely, categorically, and absolutely the man behind the grisly killing spree in 1888 in London's East End. Edwards said a blood-stained shawl he bought in 2007 after an auction in Bury Street, Edmonds, Suffolk, held vital DNA evidence which led him to the killer. I've got the only piece of forensic evidence in the whole history of the case, he said. I've spent 14 years working on it, and we have definitely solved the mystery of who Jack the Ripper was. Do you believe in this?
I don't know.
I don't believe that the first guy is the killer. Like when I've listened to this the 2 other times, like I don't believe the first one. I can maybe believe more in the number 2 or 3, but the first one I just don't see. Even the police counted him out, as they said.
Yeah. But the police was also really dumb, to be fair.
That is true. That is true.
So
that's right. We have one more suspect.
But as you can imagine, it's never quite that simple. First of all, the provenance or chain of custody of the shawl is severely lacking. There is no evidence of a shawl being found at the crime scene, nor is there any evidence of Simpson ever being at the crime scene. Furthermore, a destitute woman like Eddowes is unlikely to have owned such an expensive item. Second of all, the type of DNA used to identify Eddowes and Kosminski was mitochondrial DNA, the powerhouse of the cell. This type of DNA is passed down through the female line and is not unique to any one individual. Thousands can share the same mitochondrial DNA, which means it can't be used to pinpoint a specific person. In the words of a geneticist, based on mitochondrial DNA, one can only exclude a suspect. So to say that the mystery has been definitively solved is widely inaccurate. There's still plenty of room for doubt. So, to recap, a suspect named Kosminski was identified by an unknown witness. This was enough to convince at least one senior officer of his guilt. That suspect may have been Aaron Kosminski, a man who was largely non-violent but once threatened his sister with a knife. Aaron can neither be incriminated nor eliminated by the DNA evidence. He spent the rest of his life in psychiatric care and died in 1919 at the age of 53.
At the end of World War I, RIP.
Kosminski was not the only suspect advanced by a high-ranking officer. A completely different suspect who still falls into the same category is Francis Tumblety. Two days before the murder of Mary Jane Kelly, an American physician named Francis Tumblety was arrested in London. As you can probably tell from this photograph, Tumblety was quite an eccentric character. He was born in Ireland around 1833, but was raised in the United States. From an early age, Tumblety gained a reputation for being a medicaster or quack doctor. He engaged in all sorts of medically dubious practices and advertised himself as the Indian herb doctor. He promised to cure anything from dyspepsia and scurvy to cancer and blindness using nothing but medicinal herbs. When he was not posing as a doctor, Tumblety was busy running from the law. He was either accused or convicted for crimes like theft and assault, attempt to induce a miscarriage, and manslaughter of a patient. He was even implicated in the assassination of US President Abraham Lincoln, but was ultimately cleared of suspicion. Now, in the early 1860s, Tumblety is alleged to have hosted a lavish dinner party in Washington. Only men were invited to this dinner, and Tumblety had supposedly expressed fierce hatred of women.
Furthermore, that's normal sexism back then. Oh, that was normal.
In which he stored a vast collection of jars filled with anatomical specimens.
Yeah, I used to kill
it. Were said to contain the wombs
That's
of
a bit special.
Every class of woman.
Oh.
In 1869, Tumblety ventured across the Atlantic and visited England for the first time.
Okay.
By his own admission, he roamed the streets of London until he became familiar with every part of it. He advertised himself as the great American doctor and had a few skirmishes.
This is mad sus.
Oh yeah, this is sus,
After a few more
dude.
voyages between the old world and the new, Tumblety found himself in London in the autumn of 1888.
Oh, this is so sus.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Completely unknown. Tumblety never stayed in one place for long and made frequent use of false names. There is a story of a mysterious lodger leaving behind a blood-stained shirt near the murder site of Elizabeth Stride. This supposedly happened on the night of the murder, and some believe that this lodger was Francis Tumblety. But there is no firm evidence of that, and the entire incident is fraught with uncertainty. What we do know is that Tumblety was arrested in London on November the 7th. According to the press, as well as Tumblety himself, he was arrested on suspicion of being Jack the Ripper.
Okay.
2 days later, Mary Jane Kelly was found brutally murdered, and it's unclear whether Tumblety was still in custody or had already been released on bail. Nevertheless, he was ultimately charged with 4 counts of gross indecency, which had nothing to do with the murders. But Tumblety had no intention of standing.
Okay, so if he had been Jack the Ripper, right? And he had been on bail, and right after that would be another murderer. Yeah. I think there would be more documentation that take him in again, asking him more questions. But they don't know if he was on bail or in custody after that. So
How did it not know that, though? To be fair.
No. The scientists or the police today doesn't know that. Back then they probably knew it. But what I'm saying is he was probably in custody, because if he was on bail, all the fingers would be pointing at him, because it stopped when he got in, it continued when he got out.
I think it was. If this was after Leathers, this might be an imposter. Yeah, no. This is after. Wait, this is probably after. Yeah, this is definitely after the Leathers because.
Oh yeah,
he said
definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that kill was an imposter.
You think so?
Yeah, I think
Oh.
that when the one that it's in question is the imposter kill. Somebody else
Okay.
did it. A
Right.
copycat.
Let's go.
Instead, he made his way
Mini
across
Titanic.
the English Channel, boarded a steamship under a false name, and fled back to America. He was pursued by detectives and kept under surveillance, but his offenses were, quote, not extraditable. As such, Tomlety remained in the United States and never returned to England.
Probably the best thing to do there.
So to
And then he
recap,
became-
Francis Tomlety was a misogynistic medicaster who was in London at the time of the murders. He even showcased a collection of wombs, and the Ripper did indeed extract the womb from 2 of his victims.
True.
I mean, he sounds like the perfect suspect.
But
Perhaps a bit too perfect. There is no
Give us the
doubt
but.
that Tomlety was in London in 1888, but the claim that he was a
There we go.
misogynistic collector of human body parts is extremely dubious. It can be traced back to a single article from December of 1888, featuring an interview with a man named Charles Dunham. Dunham had a long history of spreading misinformation and has been described as a pathological liar, a forger, and a conman. He was even convicted of perjury. As such, there is every reason to believe that this story is a complete fabrication.
yeah, okay. Now I
Yeah,
suddenly
yeah,
don't believe the
yeah.
last thing.
Yeah, I don't.
Furthermore,
Yeah.
Tomlety was both older and taller than the men described by most witnesses. Tomlety was said to be, quote, an enormous man who liked to dress in flamboyant and militaristic outfits. It's difficult to imagine a tall, pompous American sneaking around the streets of Whitechapel
Yeah.
virtually undetected.
Yeah, it's not him.
Yeah.
Number 1 and
It's
4,
unclear
it's
which,
not
if
them.
any of the witness accounts
Impossible.
can be trusted. Then there's the matter of the rings. You may recall that 2 brass rings were stolen from the body of Annie Chapman. It's suspected that the rings were taken by the Ripper to be kept as trophies. Now, upon his death in 1903, Tomlety left behind a quite impressive estate. But among his many valuable possessions were a pair of inexpensive imitation rings.
Oh.
Could they have been the same rings taken from the body of Chapman? It's possible. It's also impossible to prove.
Ah, fuck, man.
That is
Inspector
interesting.
John
Though.
Lemmino
That is interesting.
regarded Tomlety as a, quote, very likely suspect. And it's not difficult to see why. If the many rumors about him are to be believed, Tomlety had both opportunity and motive to commit the murders. But therein lies the problem. Much of what we know about Tomlety is founded upon unsubstantiated rumors. Tomlety himself was an attention-seeking charlatan with no qualms about lies and deception. With a suspect like that, one can never be certain where the lies end and the truth begins.
Yeah. Okay, number 1 for me is the only one ruled out. I can believe in Tumblety.
Yeah.
To theorize
Was
about
that
the
the video?
identity of
Oh.
Jack the Ripper
Is that the
to
last chapter?
navigate a
Yeah.
minefield of hearsay, sophistry, and contradictions. Entire encyclopedias have been dedicated to the compilation of suspects, and with every passing year, they seem to grow ever more expansive. Even though there are hundreds of potential suspects, only a dozen or so are worth more than a brief consideration. Some of the more sensational contenders include famous authors and artists, as well as
Lewis
high-ranking
Carroll.
officers and members of the royal family. But these grand conspiracies and elaborate deceptions
that seems a
seem
bit dumb.
hopelessly contrived against the sheer simplicity of a suspect like Charles Lechmere, an unassuming delivery man on his way to work. Personally, I remain unconvinced that Jack the Ripper has even been identified as a suspect. The few covered in this video are probable candidates, but it's still possible to make persuasive arguments against them. The same is true of all those left out by necessity. None of them can offer anything more than ambiguity and circumstance. With a
Wait.
suspect pool in the hundreds,
So what he's saying is he doesn't believe that they've even been close to getting him.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, to be fair, like he was really undetective. Like,
No, of course, of
undetectable.
course. I do believe though that he's one of them they've talked to. Maybe not like the 4 people we just saw there, but out of those thousands of suspects, it's gotta be one of them.
I personally don't think they even identified him.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. He seems like a smart guy in some sense. Like, he seems like a really like that planned everything out. He even said like he has one on schedule earlier. So I feel like he definitely like knew where the police was and knew where like I think he was like really, because he wasn't detected. I mean,
Agreed.
the police, yeah. So I don't think he got him. I think he did a big brain barbecue move and was they lost. The imposter won. That's my theory.
But London was the largest city in the world.
True.
Home to the largest port in the world. It was a city of millions, with a large population of poorly documented drifters. It's not difficult to imagine one lowly sailor, butcher, medic, soldier, barber, merchant, porter, clerk, blending into the slums of Whitechapel like a grain of sand.
Yeah. Nah. Who do you think it is? Oh yeah, you already said.
What a great video.
I think it's Kosminski or Joseph. Dead honest, that's what I think. I'm gonna do a quick Google search as the last thing of the video, and then I'm gonna say, who was Jack the Ripper?
Lotz, I have a suggestion. You should edit, like, get your editor to edit this part into a like reaction video and post it on YouTube. I think that would be a great video for people not watching the stream.
Yeah, I
have seen a lot of these types of videos on the internet. That's like my favorite genre of videos, just watching people react and like add commentary.
I might do that, yeah. I might do that.
Like, link to that.
But I haven't recorded any of this. I can still download from my Twitch.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, what are you on about? You can just download it from Twitch. What the fuck?
Nah, but yeah, like this will probably be a video. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, this needs to be a video. I think this will do fucking great.
Yeah, me too. All right, Lassie. Thank you so much for joining the stream, and I don't think there will be any Rocket League, man. That was a long ass fucking video.
Yeah.
Now, thank you so much for tuning in, Lassie, and have a great day, dude.
Have a great day, dude. See you later.
See you later, mate.